Today I'm going to test out this new dip pen that I got for Christmas. This Tachikawa T-25 with a number 3 nib, which is quite fine nib. I'm going to ink this drawing with some Diamine Jet Black Waterproof ink. It's quite cheap, this ink, but I think it, for the purposes that I want for this illustration, I think it'll go quite good. So I'm going to start to ink this, and this is going to be a long drawn out illustration where I'm going to focus on the inking of using this dip pen for the whole of the drawing, and then maybe the second half of the video I'll focus on the background, which I was thinking some kind of watercolours for the background, and maybe Copic markers for the actual skull and dislocated jaw. So let's get inking with this ink and this dip pen. So I never really thought about using like water to maybe thin the ink down, but since using this, I think it's a good idea to do that in the future, probably in another video, because this is the first time that I've used one of these dip pens. But as you can see, I'm sort of finding my way of using it quite easy. Really, it's just remembering to dip the nib into some more ink, when you need it, when you run out. I think it's later on in the video I realised that pressing down harder on the the dip pen, you can create a thicker line, because you can see the sort of like nib becomes split and it just widens the line. So I sort of figured that out later on. Yeah, but it's moving quite smoothly. It's nice to ink with these, just inking the outlines of this skull. Early on in thinking about this skull design, I wish I'd drawn more like under parts of the skull, where the teeth are, maybe some bits of flesh or something coming out, but I didn't really want to make it too horror based, this one. I just wanted to try and do something a bit different, particularly when I come to colouring this. You'll find out, because I'm doing this video separately, just focusing on this dip pen, and then I'll maybe do the colouring in a second part video, just tie them together, things like that. But as you can see, I really like the lines that I'm inking with this dip pen. It's really thin ink, lines, because I've got like the thinnest dip pen nib, really. I sort of found out that this waterproof ink isn't totally 100% waterproof, but it did for this, the purposes of this illustration, sort of like demonstration, and it was good just to get some practice with a dip pen. Really, it's much similar to using an ink pen, but like in an old-fashioned type way. I think it's about here I realised that you can just press down harder and create like a thicker line, and that's pretty good, because it, I think you can get different sizes for these, but I think one size is good enough, because it can create a thicker line here and there. I've got like some brush pens and stuff like that can fill in any gaps and things like that. Like I said, it runs out pretty quickly, but you just have to fill it back up again. So it just like holds the ink right near the tip on the underside, which is just, I don't know, I just find it pretty cool to use. I'm starting to do some cross hatching here and there. Just to add some shadow, or to remind myself, in the colouring stage, to add, heavy shadow in there and things like that. I remember thinking at this point, I know I wanted the background to be some kind of like watercolor, or you know, some kind of something different where it just stands out, and you'll see that later on. It turned out pretty good. Yeah, even the cross hatching, I think it takes some sort of effort to try and do it more convincingly, like the ink pens that I use quite a lot, but it just takes practice. Just trying to draw some thinner lines here and there, and thicken some underneath. I know I wanted to darken the eyes as well, so I thought about some hatching there with the ink. I might use the Winsor & Newton drawing ink maybe next time I do this, and I might just experiment in between and, you know, to see, you know, how it goes, and might work out pretty good next time once I just practice. I think the harder thing to do is this cross hatching. It's not as easy as using pens. You need some kind of you know, hold on the sort of the way, I don't know, I can't describe it, the way you know, do it is different to an ink pen, and plus you've got to refill, get some more ink when you need to, and things like that. It's just takes practice. But I'd like to do more detail and maybe add some other line weights in, you know, drawing, and just see how it goes from there. I think when I add the colour anyway, a lot of this will just disappear. You know, all the gaps in between the hatching and stuff like that will sort of disappear, so the illusion will be shadow and depth and stuff. So that's the main, you know, reason why I do a lot of cross hatching on all the important areas. Just trying to add a few bits more detail here and there. I know early on that in between that dislocated jaw and the top half of the skull, I wanted like a green sort of colour. I don't know why a green colour, but I think in the end it just turned out pretty good, as you'll see in the next part of this two-part video. I'll just go on adding more detail. Some bits of scribbles, you know, with the ink, as I wasn't really too sure, you know, of using the dip pen. But I like the little flicks you can do here, you know, the ink pen just do long like flicking strokes of the, you know, the ink. I think that's the best feature of a dip pen. I think that's what, you know, maybe in the olden days what they used to use with the old quill or feather or whatever. It's something similar to that. It really does take some use and trial and error and things like that, practice, but I think I'll get there. Still doing a lot of cross hatching here and there. I mean, I recognise that I've messed up a few lines, and here and there, made it a bit more scribbly, you know, than it should be, but I'm not worried. A lot of the colour work will override some of them lines, and I just keep all the important elements that I need for it, really. Just recognised I didn't do the other side of the teeth and bits of the skull falling off, little crumbs here and there, just a few minor details, a bit more shadowing. So my first attempt at this, you know, using one of these dip pens, not too great, but still a good effort. You got to clean the brushes as well, and you know, make sure all that ink is sort of cleaned off. Maybe scrape it off if you need to. Ready for the next time you use it.